Welcome back to part 4 of creating a Reddit client using Next.js and Tailwind. This part is going to be significantly shorter than the last one. I apologize for the length. We're only going to be manipulating the nav bar. We're going to be adding a search input and allowing us to filter posts by subreddit, the subreddit being whatever we decide to type into that search input. So please, I hope you learned something. Feel free to comment below and be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. All right, let's get going. All right, so we're going to be putting a search input into our nav bar. The search input is going to allow us to input a subreddit, and then when we click enter, it's going to be searching the Reddit API for posts for that subreddit. So let's go ahead and pull up our nav bar. We have our application logo in there already. Let's go ahead and add our search input div, our search input block, however you want to say it. And we'll say div.flex.item center. We want to center some items in here, and we'll say we're going to add a form, and this form, we're going to remove the action. We're going to actually use like an onSubmit function that we'll write in a little bit, but we will give it a class name, and let's see. For now, we'll leave that class name. We'll come back to that, and we'll add our input. It's going to be type search, and we'll give it a placeholder. Placeholder is going to be search subreddits. And class name, we can add a whole bunch of classes in here, right? So it looks like we're gonna want to make it maybe a block. We want to extend the full width. We're going to give it a background, but we'll say BG gray 100, only slightly different than the actual white background. And we'll say give it a border, and we'll say border gray 300, a little bit darker than the background. We'll round that border a little bit. Just medium rounding. We'll expand the height of it by giving it some padding. That's the top and bottom padding. And then we'll say px3, a little bit further on the sides. Let's see what else we can do. Let's make the text a little bit smaller. It's an input in the nav bar itself. The nav bar isn't huge. And let's see. This div itself here, because we have justify between, this justify between is really in here for later. We probably shouldn't have put this in the beginning. Probably should just put it in later. But eventually we're going to actually be doing a toggle in the nav bar as well to switch between light and dark mode. A little bit spoiler. So that's a spoiler alert, but I think you guys knew it was coming. I think I might have mentioned it at some point. But let's go ahead and just leave it in there for now. And we'll say that this is going to, we'll give it flex 1 to kind of just expand the whole width. And then the form, what we can do with the form is that we can say, it's full width, but we have it max width of, 2XL, let's just say. And then we can also justify the content in the center as well. So, all right, let's just see what this looks like for now. We will probably need to add some additional things to this input because by default, I believe there's an outline, which I've never been a big fan of. So let's just see what this thing looks like. All right, so it looks pretty good. It's a little off-centered. We can change that, but yeah, when you click into it, you get this black outline, which I've never really liked. So what we can do is just say it's on focus only, so it's a focus state, and we can remove that outline by doing outline none. And what we could do instead is actually we could add a focus state. We can say border indigo 500, and that's kind of like a bluish purple. It's pretty nice. It'll add a nice little effect to it. So let's go ahead and leave that in there, and now we'll save it, see if that actually changes anything. Yeah, so, oops, that was not what we wanted to do. Let's see, click that. Yeah, so now that when we actually click this, instead of having that ugly black outline, we get that nice bluish purple outline. But we do want to push this over a little bit, so what we can do is we actually add margin right here to kind of push it over. So let's see, the margin right could be on the form itself, I believe. Yeah, because this is the one with the max width. The input is just filling up that width. So let's just say margin right 20, and bam, that's pretty good. That's lined up pretty well, right? All right, so then we can see that if we actually shrink this thing, looks pretty good, right? All right. So now when we type in this actual box and click enter, we're going to want to actually reload this page, right? And we're going to want to reload it with the posts for that subreddit only. So we're going to actually have to do a little use state, and then we're also going to grab a little use router too. So import use state from React, and then we can import use router from Next/router. All right. Now we can say const search set search equals use state, and we'll say the default value is empty string, and then we can also say const router equals use router. Well, not use info, use router. There we go. All right, so now we have the router, and then we can also do an on submit function here, which is going to be type form event handler, right? And that is going to equal a function, and we can put our form event argument in there, and we can say we want to actually prevent the default action, which would be submitting the form, and instead what we want to do is we want to navigate, so router.push, and we're going to push the s equals search in there, right? So let's just see how this goes. We're going to now add the value equals, and it'll be search, and then we can say on change, we'll say set search e.current_target.value. Boom. All right. And now on submit is going to go on the form, right? So now we have on submit equals on submit, right? So that's the function that we created up here. And what that should do is it should actually change the URL itself, right? It should push the new URL. And so we'll save that, let it compile. And then if we do Wall Street Bets, bam, we get Wall Street Bets, and this should be all the posts from Wall Street Bets, right? So looks pretty good. We're grabbing quite a few of these though, right? So we may want to limit that as well. So let's go ahead and do that while we're at it. We will go ahead and go back to our index. And we're already doing a check on the subreddit itself, right? So what we can do is we can also do a check if is empty query.limit. We're going to want to set it to a default value. So we can create our const default post limit equals 10, let's just say. We'll say query.limit equals default post limit, and it wants it as a string. So what we could do is we could actually make that a string, or we could just say .toString, which honestly that's kind of ridiculous. We'll just make it a string. All right, so query.limit will be that. We may want to actually use this as a number though. So, you know, I feel like it's better to have it as a number, and we will just do toString. We'll say query.limit equals that. It really doesn't matter, honestly. I don't like that, you know, it should really be any there. It should allow you to set that to a number. Your query doesn't need to be, you know, a string, but for consistency's sake, that's not going to hurt it. The number is always going to be able to be converted into a string, so we'll just let it do that, right? For type's sake. All right, so now when we do this, if we actually do, you know, /r/ let's just say popular. All right, we only have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. All right, so it actually correctly limited what we were looking for. And then the only other thing that we may want to do, let's just see this. We have some extra padding up here. let's go ahead and add a little div that'll allow us to see what we're dealing with in terms of like what the actual search value is, right? So what we could do is we could actually pass subreddit in to our props. So we'll say, you know, subreddit string, and in here we'll add subreddit, and we will also add it there. Oh, it doesn't like that. Let's go ahead and just pull this out. All right. We can actually do this as well. And move that there too. All right, so we'll move everything except the response, because technically we shouldn't worry about any of these erroring. It should really be, you know, up here. This should be pretty straightforward. Nothing to really worry about. It doesn't need to be in the try catch block. All right, so now when we go in here, we can actually add something else inside main. Let's just call it, you know, we'll just say div class name. All right, this is a relative div, so if we say absolute and we say, you know, top 20, and then in here we can give it a span, and we can say, let's see, if subreddit, if not is empty subreddit. Oop, we need to add the subreddit here too. There we go. If not is empty subreddit, and subreddit does not equal all posts, right? Not as empty subreddit, then we want to actually put /r/subreddit. Else we want it to just be empty. And we will make the text excess and, you know, text center, and we'll say w full. And let's go ahead and see what happens when we do that. So again, we'll say just pop. Bam, we have /r/pop. Let's make it bold as well. It needs to be a little bit bold. So font bold. Oops. Yeah. All right. So that looks pretty good. We have, you know, something centered in here. It shows the actual subreddit itself. It's just something little to kind of denote that. But, you know, when we actually add that in there like that, we get /r/Wall Street Bets, and we have our post limited to 10. And, you know, when we go ahead and delete, we get the s equals there, right? And so that's one more thing that we could actually, it still actually does this correctly, believe it or not. But if you don't want that in the in the actual URL, what you can do is you can say, you know, if search, if is empty, search here, or search equals all posts. Then we want to just router.push just / right? All right, so we router push / it should just go back to home. It won't have the actual query string with the su search. And now if we end up going back here, let's just reload the original page. We'll go back to Wall Street, just put Wall Street for this one, /r/Wall Street. And then if we delete it and we click enter again, it goes back to home, your original all posts, all subreddits, etc. So for now, we have our search capability. We have the ability to filter with subreddits, and we've limited to 10 posts per search. Next, we're going to be moving into pagination. So hope you guys enjoyed. Hope you learned something. Feel free to post comments and let me know if there's anything else you'd want to see. All right, see you next time. All right, so hope you guys enjoyed. This is a quick and simple way to just add search capabilities to the Reddit app. If you wanted to add a submit button, that would also probably be a smart thing to do as well, in case somebody doesn't realize that they can just hit enter. We can do that in a future video, or, like you guys said, I can kind of just use that as an extension and figure out your own way to do it. I think something cool would be to put the button in the input itself and then add a little search icon in there. So that might be a future video. We'll see what happens. Until then, make sure you subscribe to see any updates and future releases, and I hope you guys had fun. All right, see you soon.